or even if one ate forbidden fat and there is uncertainty whether there is the measure that determines liability in the piece he ate, and uncertainty, 17b, whether there is not the measure that determines liability in the piece he ate, he must bring a provisional guilt offering. If one has a piece of permitted fat and a piece of forbidden fat before him, and he ate one of them, and he does not know which of them he ate, or if his wife and his sister were with him in the house, and he unwittingly engaged in intercourse with one of them, and he does not know with which of them he unwittingly engaged in intercourse, or if he confused Shabbat and a weekday, and he performed labor prohibited on Shabbat on one of the days, and he does not know on which of them he performed the labor, in all of those cases he is liable to bring a provisional guilt offering. Just as in a case where one unknowingly ate a piece of forbidden fat and then another piece of forbidden fat in a single lapse of awareness, he is liable to bring only one sin offering. So too, in a case where their status is unknown to him, and he ate them both unwittingly during a single lapse in awareness, he is liable to bring only one provisional guilt offering. But if he had gained knowledge between the first and second instance of eating that there is a possibility the fat might be prohibited, then the halakha is different, just as he would be liable to bring a sin offering for each and every piece when he gained knowledge of their prohibited status in between each act of consumption. So too he must bring a provisional guilt offering for each and every instance in which he consumed food that might be forbidden after learning of their uncertain status in between each unwitting act of consumption. Just as in a case where one ate forbidden fat and blood and pigul and notar in one lapse of awareness, he is liable to bring a sin offering for each and every one. So too, with regard to a case where their status is unknown to him and he ate them unwittingly during one lapse of awareness, he must bring a provisional guilt offering for each and every item. Gemara. With regard to the Mishnah's mention of one who ate a piece of fat whose status was uncertain, it was stated that Rav Asi says, we learn that one is liable to bring a provisional guilt offering in the case of one single piece that is uncertain if it is of forbidden fat and uncertain if it is of permitted fat. Haya bar Rav disagreed and said, we learn this halakha in the case of an uncertainty involving one piece out of two pieces, one of which is forbidden fat and the other permitted fat. But in the case of a single piece, one who consumes it is not liable to bring an offering. The Gemara inquires, with regard to what matter do Rav Asi and Haya bar Rav disagree? The Gemara answers, it is stated in a verse discussing the obligation to bring a provisional guilt offering. And if anyone sin and do any of the commandments, mitzvot, of the Lord that are not to be done, though does not know it, yet is he guilty and shall bear his iniquity. Rav Asi holds the tradition of the manner in which the verses in the Torah are written is authoritative, and one derives halakot based on the spelling of the words. Therefore, the obligation to bring a provisional guilt offering applies only when there is uncertainty with regard to a single piece. because the word is written as mitzvat in the singular form. And Haya bar Rav says, the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative, meaning that one derives halakot based on the pronunciation of the words, even if it diverges from the spelling. Therefore, since we read the word in the plural as mitzvot, the obligation to bring a provisional guilt offering applies only when two pieces are present. Rav Huna raised an objection to Rav Asi, and some say it was Haya bar Rav who raised the objection to Rav Asi. The latter clause in the Mishnah states, if one has a piece of permitted fat and a piece of forbidden fat before him, and he ate one of them, what? Is it not correct to infer from the fact that the latter clause of the Mishnah is referring to two pieces that the first clause, which introduces the topic, is also referring to two pieces? Rav said to them, do not go after the opposite, i.e., do not cite a proof from a source that could be understood in the reverse manner, as Rav Asi can answer you by claiming that whereas the latter clause is referring to two pieces, the first clause is referring to one piece. The Gemara questions this claim. If so, one can say that once the Mishnah has taught that the consumption of one piece of fat that might be forbidden renders him obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering, does it need to be said that the same applies in a case involving two pieces, where one of them is definitely forbidden? The Gemara answers that the Mishnah is employing the style. This, and it is unnecessary to say that, i.e., the first teaches the more difficult and novel case, then teaches the easier, more straightforward one. The Gemara asks, and according to the opinion of Haya bar Rav, who says that from the fact that the latter clause of the Mishnah is referring to two pieces, the first clause is referring two pieces. Why do I need two clauses to teach the same halakha? The Gemara answers that the Mishnah is explaining itself as follows. If there is uncertainty whether one ate forbidden fat, and uncertainty whether one did not eat forbidden fat, he must bring a provisional guilt offering. How so? For example, in a case where there was forbidden fat and permitted fat before him, and he ate one of them. The Gemara cites a series of virtually identical statements attributed to Rav, followed by different rationales for his opinion, after each of which it raises several objections from a Bereta or a Mishnah. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, in a case where one had two pieces of fat before him, one of permitted fat and one of forbidden fat, if he ate one of them and he does not know which of them he ate, he is obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering. But if there was only one piece before him, and there was uncertainty whether it was of forbidden fat and uncertainty whether it was of permitted fat, and he ate it, he is exempt. Rava said, what is the reason for the opinion of Rav? He derives it from that which the verse states. And if anyone sin and do any of the commandments, mitzvot, of the Lord that are not to be done, though he does not know it, yet is he guilty, and shall bear his iniquity. Rav derives from the plural mitzvot that one is not liable to bring a provisional guilt offering until he is unwitting with regard to one of two items, which in this case is 2 pieces of fat. The Gemara asks, but isn't it written mitzvot in the singular form? The Gemara answers, we read it as mitzvot in the plural. In other words, according to Rava, Rav maintains that the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative. Abai raised an objection to Rava from a Bereta. Rabbi Eliezer says, with regard to a koi, a kosher animal with characteristics of both a domesticated animal and a non-domesticated animal, one is obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering for eating its fat. The prohibition of forbidden fats applies only to those of a domesticated animal. The corresponding fats are permitted in the case of a non-domesticated animal. Since a koi is of uncertain status, one must bring a provisional guilt offering for eating its fat. Evidently, one is liable to bring a provisional guilt offering even in a case where there was uncertainty involving a single item. Rava said to Abai, Rabbi Eliezer holds that the tradition of the manner in which the verses in the Torah are written is authoritative. Consequently, as the singular form, mitzvot, is written, he maintains that a provisional guilt offering must be brought in a case of uncertainty involving a single item, such as the fat of a koi. The Gemara raised an objection to Rav from a Bereta. If one consummates levirate marriage with his Yavama, and 7 months later she gives birth, there is uncertainty whether the child is 9 months old, i.e., counting from conception, and is the offspring of the first husband, which would mean the levirate bond did not take effect, or whether the child is only 7 months old and is the offspring of the latter husband, i.e., the Yavam, not the deceased, in which case the levirate bond did take effect. In such a situation, due to the possibility that she is forbidden to him as his brother's wife, he must divorce her, but the offspring is of unflawed lineage, as whether it was born from the first or the second husband, its conception involved no transgression. The Bereta concludes, and to atone for the possibility that they engaged in forbidden intercourse, they are each obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering. This indicates that one is obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering even when the uncertainty involves a single item. The Gemara answers, in accordance with whose opinion is this Bereta? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who, as stated above, maintains that one is obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering for uncertainty involving a single item. The Gemara raised another objection to Rav from a Mishnah. It is the custom of Jewish women to engage in intercourse with their husbands with 2 cloths, one for her husband to wipe himself with to see if any of her blood is on him after intercourse, and one for her to check herself to ascertain after intercourse whether her menstrual flow has begun. If after intercourse blood was found on his cloth, the woman and her husband are both ritually impure for 7 days, in accordance with the halakha of a menstruating woman and a man who engages in intercourse with her, and they are each liable to bring a sin offering for unwittingly performing an action punishable by Keret. The Mishnah continues, if blood was found on her cloth immediately, otyom, after intercourse, the woman and her husband are likewise ritually impure for 7 days, and are each liable to bring a sin offering. If blood was found on her cloth after time passed, they are both impure due to uncertainty, as it is possible the blood appeared only after intercourse, and they are exempt from bringing the sin offering. And it is taught with regard to this last case in the Mishnah, they are each nevertheless liable to bring a provisional guilt offering. The Gemara again answers, in accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Hayah says that Rav says, in a case where one had 2 pieces of fat before him, one of permitted fat and one of forbidden fat, and he ate one of them, and he does not know which of them he ate, he is obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering. But if there was only 1 piece before him, and there was uncertainty whether it was of permitted fat, and uncertainty whether it was of forbidden fat, and he ate it, he is exempt. Rabbi Zierah said, what is the reason for the ruling of Rav? He holds one is liable to bring a provisional guilt offering only in a case involving 2 pieces, as it is possible to identify its prohibition, as an expert might later examine the remaining piece and determine whether or not one ate the prohibited piece. By contrast, in a case of uncertainty involving only 1 piece, it is impossible to identify its prohibition and ascertain whether one ate a forbidden or permitted piece of fat. The Gemara asks, what difference is there between the reason given earlier by Rava for Rav's ruling and the reason stated here by Rabbi Zierah? The Gemara answers, the difference between them is a case where there were 2 pieces before a person, one measuring an olive bulk and the other measuring 1/2 of an olive bulk. Since according to halakha, a measure of less than an olive bulk is of no relevance in such a case, it is considered as though only 1 piece is present before him. The Gemara elaborates, according to Rava, who contends that Rav maintains that the plural vocalization of the Torah is authoritative, this is not a case of uncertainty involving 2 items, as required by the plural form mitzvot, and therefore he is exempt. By contrast, according to Rabbi Zierah, this is a case where it is possible to identify its prohibition by examining and remaining piece, and he is therefore obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering. Rabbi Yirmeiah raised an objection to Rabbi Zierah from a Bereta. Rabbi Eliezer says, with regard to a koi, one is obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering for eating its fat. Evidently, one must bring a provisional guilt offering even in a case where the uncertainty involves only a single item. Rabbi Zierah said to Rabbi Yirmeiah, Rabbi Eliezer holds we do not require a case where it is possible to identify its prohibition in order for one to be obligated to bring a provisional guilt offering.